with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
This is the way that it is. The leader's job, the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. It is to define reality. When you are getting new recruits, when individuals get ready to go into the military, they come into boot camp, and they got a drill sergeant there. Their first responsibility of their leaders, the people who have rank and authority there, they define reality. These are your barracks. This is the time that you go to bed. This is the time that you get up. This is the time that you eat. This is the time that you take your shower. They define your reality for you. The first responsibility of leadership is to define reality with clarity. You must be absolutely clear about who you are and what you stand for. Your vision must be clear. You remember Habakkuk, that talked about write the vision and make it plain, clear. Make the vision clear. You must have clarity in your vision. Now, if you cannot express your vision in a sentence or two, your vision is not clear enough. Really, the essence of your vision ought to be able to fit on the front of a t-shirt. That's when you know the person has clear vision. If you got to read 6 paragraphs or 2 pages explaining the vision, you don't even understand it well enough. You have to understand your vision. When I live with a passion, when I go out, my purpose is to know Christ and to make him known. I live with a mission, real simple, real simple. My overall vision is real simple. It's very, very simple. I'm not twisted or confused about it at all. I've had it as our slogan for a number of years: reaching the lost, teaching the found. It is the essence of what we are as a church. Evangelistic in the nature, to reach the lost, having a passion for souls, and then a compassion for Christ, that you reach the lost and you teach the found. That's clarity. What part of that don't you understand? Just clarity of vision. Now, you could go and spend many pages of explanations in terms of what all of that means, but you know what lost means. You know what found means. You know what reaching means. You know what teaching means. Reaching the lost, teaching the found. Reaching the lost, teaching the found. There must be clarity. There must be clarity of vision. Clarity of vision. Clarity of your vision. Be clear about what you want. Be clear about what you want. They said that the man who wears 2 watches is never fully sure what time it is. And I'll tell you this, I don't wear but 1 watch at a time. And one thing is sure, I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. I am sure about what time I think it is. But you must have clarity. You must have clarity. What will happen if you get in an automobile and speed down the road and you don't have clarity of vision? You're going to have an accident, aren't you? Wouldn't it be foolish to go, just to open your vehicle up full blast on a day with thick fog and you don't have clarity of vision? You can't see 20 feet in front of you and you got the thing, you're doing 80 miles an hour and there's a dense fog and you don't have clarity of vision. That's the same thing of where you start out trying to do something in life and you don't have clarity, like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. No. The first responsibility of leadership is clarity of vision. Clarity. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Clarity. Number 2 is competence. Competence. You set a standard of excellence for the place where you work. Be competent in your work. Be able to do the job that you're hired to do. Seek ways to improve the quality of whatever it is that your company provides, products or services. Just be able to do it. You ought to be like Martin Luther King. He said, if you're going to be a street sweeper, you sweep that street so well. Just like Michelangelo painted portraits, just like Beethoven composed music. He said you do it so well that nobody living, dead, or yet unborn could sweep it any better. He said if you can't be the tallest pine on the top of the hill, be the best little shrub in the valley. But it was about being competent in what God has gifted you and called you to be. I don't care if it is whistling through a gap in your teeth. Whatever it is, there's something that God has uniquely qualified you to do. You have to be able to go in your strength zone of what you have a competence to do. Competence. Number 3 is commitment. Commitment. You demonstrate compassionate commitment to whatever organization that you're working for. Commitment motivates and inspires other people to do their best work and to put their whole heart into their job. You cannot depend on uncommitted people. There's got to be commitment. Commitment. Show that you're committed. Number 4 is constraints. Constraints. You identify the constraints or the limiting factors that set the speed at which your company achieves its most important goals of profitability. In another sense, your constraints are your borders of your life, or the parameters in which you will operate. You've got to set limits for yourself so that you never compromise your character or your integrity. You have to have constraints so that you stay in your lane. Did you notice in the last Olympics, there was a guy that ran and he was in 5th place. But do you know he ended up winning the bronze because winner number 3 was disqualified because he went over his constraints, and winner number 4 was disqualified because he got out of his lane, but winner number 5 was running in his place. He stayed in his lane, and he thought that he had lost, but he won the bronze because number 3 and number 4 crossed the line. Doesn't it burn you up to work with people who stop doing their job, cross over into your lane, and tell you how to do your job, run your business, raise your child, handle your husband, your wife? You all don't know anybody like that, do you? Who has gotten out of their lane? Touch your neighbor, just remind them, stay in your lane. That's why you need constraints, 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 constraints. Listen, when you are really going to do something well in your life, you have to have constraints because you resist the temptation to do something else that seems good when I need to focus on this. And there's nothing that will stop you from getting your goal any faster than broken focus. That's why you have to put blinders on that constrain you to say, listen, I'm going full force in this direction. This is my goal. This is what I'm going to. I don't have time to get involved in that right now and this over here. I've been called to do this. I've got on my constraints right now. That keeps me in my lane. I know gifted people who have great competence and they're committed, but they get distracted because they don't have sufficient constraints on what pulls their focus. Number 5, creativity. Creativity. Remain open to new ideas from all sources. One of the best places to get new ideas for what should be done is from complainers. Find complaining people. You won't have to look very far. You want to know how to create something that becomes better than what the competition has? Find somebody in the competition who's complaining about what the competition is doing, and you'll learn what you can improve on, improvise. Necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, when you really get down where you're operating with a little tinier bit of money, you'll be surprised when you don't have a whole lot of money how creative you become. There is nothing that will stimulate creativity any faster than being broke. You get real creative. Some of you all, when you didn't have a whole lot of food and you had some beans and some cornmeal, I mean, you can get really, really creative. You'll be surprised. I mean, creativity just goes off the chain. I'm like, how in the world did they figure out how to do this with that? It's absolutely amazing, just absolutely amazing. I was in a foreign country, dirt poor, these folks were making maybe $250 a year. And they were out playing, and they'd gotten creative, making their own little bat and ball. They were out there playing. They had made these little patty cakes or whatever it was. I don't know what it was. But they had taken cow dung, and they used that as the coal to cook their food. It's rich in methane gas. It's amazing how creative you become when you can't go down to the store and buy some charcoal. They found animal refuse, baked it into some cakes, patted into some cakes. They lit the stuff. Barbecue was for dinner. You'd be surprised what incredible creativity can come. The less money you have, the more creative you are forced to be. Creativity often produces its best work in isolation when you're all alone. Don't ever forget that. It does its best work when you're all alone. You will be surprised. There are some things that you can pay some people a whole lot of money to come in to do, but when you don't have the kind of money to pay them to come in to do it, you will be surprised how well you can hang sheetrock, how well you can paint. You will be absolutely surprised. You might be able to lay a little tile and carpet, and you'll be surprised what you can do when you really have to do it. And listen, I found this out. You can do just about anything that you set your mind to do if you give enough time to it. Everything that you say you can't do is because you haven't invested the time to learn to do it. If you put time with it, you can master it. I promise you that. If you give it sufficient time, you can master it. You'll be surprised how creative you can become. But your creativity will come in isolation. You'll be sitting somewhere all by yourself, and all of a sudden, pow, here comes the idea. I'm not telling you what I read out of somebody's book. I'm just telling you out of my own life experience here. Sometimes there's people who say, well, Bishop, how did you get this? I'm going to tell you right now. It's when I'm in my isolation chamber. I can be all by myself, and all of a sudden, my creativity turns on when I'm all by myself. You know why? Have you ever thought about the fact that when a woman gives birth, she doesn't want to give birth in front of an audience? We want to give birth in private. And what you birth out of your spirit is birthed in a private place. He that dwelleth in the secret place, she that dwelleth in the secret place shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And I declare to you that God will give you witty inventions when your mind is least thinking about it and you are creative in a place of isolation. You don't even understand why God might have ostracized you from some of your family members even, from your neighbors, from your friends that you can't even talk to about what you are dealing with. I know they think that you are close and y'all just like that and you can tell each other anything, but there are some places where you hurt so badly that they can't even talk, you can't even talk to them about it. And out of that comes your best music and your best poetry and your best creative designs and your best business idea and your best renovations. I mean, when you really want to see your creativity get in full force, you get alone with a creative God and allow his thoughts to flow to you so that they flow through you. You get it? It flows. Creativity flows in isolation. Are we helping anybody? Number 6 is consistency. Consistency. You develop the self-discipline to be consistent, dependable, reliable, calm, and predictable in all situations. Because people are afraid to trust people whose reactions they cannot predict. Because when there's a storm, they need to know that you are not going to be blown away by the wind. I mean, I know that you ain't been out of anger management but 2 weeks. But I guarantee you they are not going to put you in a supervisory position when you are still struggling with your anger management issues. Because they know that when you lose it through anger management or lack of anger management, they know that you're going to offend customers, intimidate other employees. It's going to be a destructive force, and they're afraid to trust you because the person is not consistent in their mentality and their temperament. You need even-keel folks when you're going to put them in certain positions of responsibility. They look for consistency. You can't let every little thing that comes your way be such a distraction to you that it gets you all keyed up and now you're about to lose your mind. Because when you get angry, your creativity shuts down. When you get frustrated, creativity is stopped in its tracks. So you have to watch yourself and make sure that you are consistent in your life. Consistent, dependable, calm, reliable. You cannot think when your mind is frustrated. It's as though somebody has thrown a monkey wrench into the program and your mind, your thoughts are discombobulated whenever your mind becomes inconsistent. And so you have to have a real calm, steady mind in order to be able to think under pressure. You have to remain calm. You ever notice when you're on an airplane, they said in case of an emergency? Now you know if the plane is going down. I mean, whether they come on the PA system or not, tell me, please remain calm. Your life is flashing before you. Please remain calm. An oxygen mask will drop down and descend. Please secure yours on yourself before helping your neighbor. Please remain calm. Yeah, right. But here's the deal. If you lose your head when an emergency happens, more people die in emergency situations because they didn't follow instructions because they lost their head. That's why they tell you to remain calm. You can't think. You start panicking. When you panic, you drown. You have to remain calm. You have to remain calm. If you have to tell yourself that 1,000,000 times, remain calm. Please remain. I know I'm getting ready to die, but remain calm. You know what I realize is that if you're going to die, screaming is not going to help it. And ladies, when you're giving childbirth, let me just tell you, when my wife and I, we were in the hospital and she was delivering our first child, there was another lady in another room. Every time a contraction hit her, this lady called God's first name and his last name. And she called his first and last name throughout the contraction. GD, 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 over and over and over. She was so loud. The doctor didn't want us to get alarmed. He said, don't pay her any attention. Please remain calm. And I think he told us that this was either her third or fourth child. She was over there screaming like this was her first child. And I had my wife all set up there. She was listening to praise and worship music, just blowing her contractions away. I mean, if it's going to hurt, And let me just tell you, when you scream, you tense up and you actually make the contraction worse than when you just breathe and just breathe through it. Just breathe. Just let God come into that situation. I know it's painful, but let God come into that situation. He'll help you to get through it better. He really will. He really will. And here's number 7. Number 7 is continuous learning. Continuous learning. Be committed to reading, to listening, to upgrading your personal knowledge and skills. Set aside time, set aside resources to invest for training and development. The best companies have the best trained people. The second best companies have the second best trained people. And those who train the least are on their way out of business. And as times change, you have to commit to becoming a perpetual learner. And let me say this to you. Learners beat the learned. Let me say that again. Learners beat the learned. Eric Hoffer emphasized the importance of learning quite well when he wrote, in times of change, leaders or learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. You got to not only be a learned person, where you learn things from the past and how to deal with it. You've got to be a student of life, where you're constantly learning about things in this world. Constantly learning about things, because those who are well learned, they will be able to deal beautifully with a world that no longer exists. Remember, we're on a seascape, and the world around us is changing. Alvin Toffler spoke with prophetic insight, I told you, when he said that the educated of the 21st century will be he or she who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. Those are the folks. Those folks who have the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And listen, you've got to make a determination to continue to learn throughout your life. You have to make a determination to do that, to learn throughout your life. Always work on you. Always work on you. Continue to develop yourself. Find ways to make yourself better. Get around other people who are on another level than you are. Did you know in the parable of the talents, in Matthew chapter 25 and verse 15, these talents were not given to each one because of favor. The talents were not given because of their birth order. They were not even given because of their righteousness. The talents were given to them, and let me help you to understand that a talent was conservatively, in our day and time, 1 talent of gold was equivalent to at least $10,000. Probably more now because of inflation. You'd probably say in this day and time it would probably been equal to maybe about $25,000. Each 1 talent would have been equal to about maybe $25,000. And each talent was given to each person not based on the favor of God, not based on whether they were a child of God or not based on their birth order. It was not based on their level of righteousness. The talent was given to them based on their ability to handle the talent and develop it. So the one that had the greatest ability was given the greatest amount, and they produced the greatest results. The second one, who had the next greatest ability, received the next greatest amount, and they did the greatest results. And the one who received the least did the least with his. And so the lesson is that if you want to be trusted with more, you've got to develop your ability to handle more. You've got to develop your ability to handle more. That's why it's always important to stay connected to someone who's on a level beyond where you are. If you're working for an organization right now, and if you're a really great worker, finish all of your work and then go to your supervisor, go to the boss man and say, you know what, I'm finished with the assignment that you gave me. Is there anything else that I can do for you? And you know what will happen is that they'll start trying to give you some busy work. But if you'll finish that busy work, go right to it immediately, get the busy work done as rapidly as you can, then come back to that person. Guess what? Eventually, you'll develop a reputation with that boss. And he'll say, you know what, if you need something done, I know just the person who will get it done, and they'll call you. But I want you to rest assured that God will not trust you with, number one, what you cannot manage. If you can't manage it, God will not trust you with it. He will not trust you with what you cannot manage. Number two, God will not trust you with what you cannot give. If you can't give something to help somebody else, God won't trust you. If you can't give money, God will never trust you with money. If you can't give praise, God will never trust you with praise. You know, God will never trust you with what you can't manage. It would be disastrous if He blessed you with a business if you don't know how to manage it. He won't bless you with what you cannot give. If you don't give thanks, why would God trust you with it? If you don't know how to give it. You got to know how to give whatever it is that God is going to trust you with. And number three, God will never trust you with what you cannot see others with and rejoice. You got to be able to celebrate it in your brother's and your sister's life, in your friend's life. You got to be able to celebrate. He won't give you what you can. I mean, if you're hating on somebody else because they got this, you ought to celebrate and say, Lord, thank God that somebody that I know got blessed with this. And when you are happy for them, honestly happy for them, instead of hating on them because they got married and you're still single, celebrate it. Celebrate. God will never trust you with what you cannot see others with and rejoice. You get mad because somebody got a finer house than you do, because somebody got a finer car than you do, because somebody got a finer man or finer woman than you do. And you'll be surprised at the trifling people that get bent out of shape because somebody got something that's a little better than where they were. And let me just tell you this. You may not know this, But the first time that the word sin is mentioned in the Bible, it is not mentioned in reference to Adam and Eve. You check your Bible. It is not mentioned in reference to Adam and Eve. And it was not even mentioned in reference to Cain killing Abel. But it was referenced with the jealousy that was in Cain for what Abel had. In Genesis chapter 4 and verse 7, he got jealous, and it was jealousy, and at that point he said, sin lieth at the door. First time sin is ever mentioned in the Bible was over a jealous spirit, coveting what somebody else had. Couldn't even be thankful to God over what he was blessed with, and he had much to be thankful for, but he got so jealous over what his brother had, couldn't see him with it and rejoice. And he got a mark on his head and sent him to the land of Nod to live in exile for the rest of his life. How many people are having their lives lived out in exile because they couldn't celebrate with a brother or sister who was able to get up and get out of the hood? Celebrate them, celebrate them, celebrate them, celebrate them. Thank God for them, help them, patronize them. You know, celebrate it. And when you do that, I'm just telling you, if you ever want God to build something in your life, help somebody else build something. You got to sow into somebody else's vision. If you expect God to sow into yours and to send people to help you, you've got to do it. You reap what you sow. You've got to do it for another. Serve it with all of your heart. And I'm telling you, you lay the groundwork for God to bring that thing back into your own life. You will discover that God will bring your life into a wonderful, wonderful place. I've got so much more to tell you, but all of my time is gone.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.